Good afternoon. I'm Kate West, and welcome to our virtual fireside for a chat with Nick Verginis from SENVIC and our very own social procurement advisor, Brian Finnegan. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hi, Kate.
Nick, can you please tell us a little bit about SENVIC?
Yeah, great. So SENVIC is the Social Enterprise Network Victoria. We are a pretty young alliance and network for the social enterprise community. It started with a group of 9 founders a few years ago, and I've been in the role as CEO, as the first CEO since January last year. We accelerated what we do with some significant funding from Victorian government, who, with their commitment to a social procurement framework, saw the importance of having a thriving social enterprise network that could really drive the community's connections and innovation. So we exist to grow a thriving social enterprise community in Victoria, and we do that by building connections, facilitating access to learning and development opportunities, and increasing the voice and the influence of social enterprise across Victoria.
Fabulous. And I guess what attracted you to the role and what drives you?
So I think, look, I love working with passionate, creative people who look at a problem or look at a piece of junk and they squint and they say, I can work with this. The social enterprise community is full of amazing people who are passionate and committed and creative, who have a heart that wants to include everybody in the prosperous economy that we have in Victoria, and they can work out a business case to make that happen. So it's that entrepreneurial, perhaps foolhardy spirit that is exciting to be around. And I think the other big thing for me is I'm one of those grey-haired people who listened to Greta Thunberg and her protests, and that was back in 2019, I think. It feels like a lifetime ago. But I listened to Greta, and I heard the message from my children, who weren't old enough to say those types of things, but there was that sense of obligation and responsibility to pass on the world in a better place than the way it's currently heading. So I think in my job now, what I'm finding is that sentiment is very common. It's gone viral.
Love it.
Fantastic. Now, I've got a double-barreled question for you, Nick. Can you explain to the listeners or the viewers why you feel social enterprise engagement is valuable, and as a supplement to that, why contractors should be attracted to working with your members?
Yeah, so look, I think the pandemic has accelerated a trend we've seen actually for many years. Young people in workplaces reflect a consciousness that challenges the received wisdom of how business is done. And that's been expressed in our workplaces in terms of the choices we make about who we buy from, but also in terms of consumer trends. We're moving from an exploitative, unsustainable ways of working to being much more conscious about our impact on people and planet. And so market forces are reflecting that in many ways right now. We heard even just yesterday, Energy Australia announcing an early closure of the Yallourn power station. This is a sign that the business community get what's happening and they're planning for it. And that is, in a way, business is showing leadership in that sense. But still we're seeing government, particularly the Victorian government, showing leadership in other areas like the social procurement framework. And expectations are changing. Shareholders' expectations are changing too. So more businesses are monitoring their impact, are being accountable to their workers about, what social or environmental impact they're having. And that's why social enterprise matters, because it's ahead of the pack. It's ahead of the curve in terms of how to shape a business model about improving outcomes for people on the planet, and to do it in a feasible, sustainable, viable way. And so that's why, when it comes to what's your second question about attracting, what's the attraction with social enterprises, is that we have worked out how to have competitive prices for products and services, how to match quality or improve quality of the product and services you're seeking, and have a third element, a little bit of magic, which is the knowing the impact you're making by using your buying power by partnering with social enterprise. And there's wonderful examples. Gain, traffic, and contracting. They are, from the outside, they look like an ordinary commercial business that operates in central Victoria. So they have a commercial traffic management, maintenance, fencing. I think they do garden, landscaping work as well, event management. But they use their commercial operations to deliver a program called Geared for Careers, which supports 1,000 at-risk young people with 18 staff across 14 secondary schools, from Bendigo to Wodonga. And so they are using their business model, which from the outside, you wouldn't know the difference. They're helping to break down intergenerational disadvantage, incarceration, marginalization. They're helping some of the poorest young kids who wouldn't have a chance if it wasn't for these types of interventions. So it is a little bit of magic that comes with your buying power. And I find time and again that when you explain this to people, that they are completely dumbstruck. It's like an awakening that what they were doing, perhaps without much consideration about the implications, just buying a product, they didn't realize they could also have an enormous positive impact for the local community if they just switched. And that's without compromising quality or price. It leaves people speechless. And it's not just about that good feeling, which is the thing that perhaps sometimes we get accused of. It's actually good business for the reasons I said before. Your staff will love to hear this story. Your customers would love to hear this story. So even if you perhaps may not be the most environmentally friendly organization, you can say this is where we buy stuff from, which improves our credentials in that area.
Well, outstanding answer. I couldn't have put it better myself. And I think getting beyond that price paradigm, if you will, to be competitive at the same time, to kind of offer that magic. And I think magic's the right word. That probably wouldn't say that in a sale, but that's probably me. But going back to talking about, kind of the impact of the COVID pandemic, and I was going to say 2020, but it seems to have crept into 2021 as well. Yeah. Do you have any positive stories from the challenges that have, kind of befallen all of us through this pandemic that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's. I think we all had that sense in lockdown that it forced us to just stop and take stock and recalibrate. And I think from that, there's been lots written about this very positive outcomes from doing that. There's some really important movements like the buy local and supporting local jobs and local communities. People have become more acquainted with their local store and really valuing what it does. And so I found that with that, social enterprises also benefited because people have become conscious of not only the local store, but the one that has designed its business model about being an inclusive employer or being more sustainable in the way that it runs its business. An example I'll give is the Christie Centre in Mildura, They are a portfolio social enterprise. So they have a number of businesses that they operate, and they provide meaningful, rewarding employment for people who are otherwise left out of the mainstream economy. They operate the Mildura Chocolate Company. They have a nursery. They sell art. They have a waste management recycling service. And they have been really embraced by the local council up there. And there's talk about creating a social enterprise hub, which is really going to showcase what they're capable of, and bring in other social enterprises. And on top of that, they've been recognised as being business leaders. So the CEO of the Christie Centre, Florence Davidson, she was supported by SENVIC, nominated to be on the regional partnership board for the Loddon Mallee region, and she's successful in that. And it's sort of demonstrating that SENVIC is emerging as that interface with government, bringing together sort of the business community, I suppose the community sector, and being a pathway for connecting with government. So I think that's a really positive progression, and I hope to see that in other parts of the state too. What I've really liked seeing post-pandemic is a real focus on economic diversity, in the sense of improving our resilience to global disruptions. There's a new focus on manufacturing, and inclusive employers are really in the box seat there, because they have been ahead of the curve in terms of manufacturing work that perhaps might be linked to waste and recovery. We've seen lots of great examples with Outlook in Melbourne. We've got Green Collect also. There are other wonderful examples like that, which are showing what manufacturing capability Victoria can have. Also, there's a new focus on food security, and trying to be smarter with the way that we deliver food and get it around the state. There's innovative business models popping up everywhere. Of course, everyone's online like we are, and that's really connecting us in ways that we didn't before. So in SENVIC, we're finding a real openness and sharing of ideas of how to improve what we do, and be really creative. The Social Studio is a social enterprise that's in Melbourne that they devolved manufacturing of health scrubs during the pandemic, and have expanded their productivity by effectively reversing the Industrial Revolution by creating cottage industries where they supplied women who are refugees or recent immigrants who have the ability to sew and make garments. They are now employed to create uniforms, and that kind of innovation is a great result of this kind of bizarre lockdown that we've had to experience and endure this past year. And the social enterprise field is just full of these types of examples where that willingness to do something different and collaborate and be creative has really shone through.
Fantastic. Look, you probably already answered the next question, but given the last year, and it's been almost a full year now, can you think of a number one takeaway from the last 12 months that springs to mind on top of all the things you've talked about so far?
Yeah, look, it is. I'd land with collaboration. It's really, it's shown that collaboration is the currency of social enterprise. We really have appetite, a willingness and openness to collaborate with others rather than to see them as competitors. And so it's because of that we've seen Moving Feast emerge, which is a collaboration of about 30 social enterprises that have scaled collectively from growing food, cooking food, and delivering meals and produce to the most vulnerable Victorians, particularly during the tower lockdown we had in inner city Melbourne middle of last year. It's now regrouping and working out what happened, how did they do it, what's the recipe for success, and SENVIC is now looking at that to see how we can expand that beyond metropolitan Melbourne, and how we can replicate that in other sectors, in other industries, to really show how working collectively we can have a enormous impact through scaling together.
Fantastic. Look, I'm going to sneak in an extra crafty question after this one as well, Kate, just so you know. Nick, if you could advise a business to engage with social enterprise or social enterprises, what would that advice be?
It's really simple. Switch to social enterprise. Look at your supply chains and switch. You know, we're working with social traders and other platforms to make it easier to switch, to make it easier to recognize who is a social enterprise, because that is important. It's important that people have confidence that when they think they're buying a socially responsible, environmentally sustainable product or service, that is genuine and deep. And so, you know, we need to work together with social traders and others to make sure that that value isn't lost. So reach out to SENVIC in the meantime, and we can help as well connect you with the right people.
Fantastic. And the curly question is, if you could advise a social enterprise how to engage with business, what would you advise? What would that advice be?
I think it's really important to be clear what your product and service is and who you're selling it to. I think there are very different markets out there. If you're a consumer-oriented business, then focus on that. But if you're looking for the corporate dollar, then you know it's just a slightly different consideration about how you communicate your value. I think a lot of businesses are thinking about their workforces and what they are looking for, and some of that might be an experience. It might be about more than just buying the products that you get from that social enterprise, but perhaps doing an event together or allowing tours to happen so that workers can see what's behind those products and services. So it's really just being open to those different types of transactions, you know.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Nick, and that is well, it certainly sounds like great advice to me. I've really enjoyed just sitting back and listening to you talk, actually, and it's really good stuff and makes you think. And I would like to ask you though, you have touched on it throughout, but what your goals are going forward.
Yeah, so for SENVIC, like as I said, we're still relatively young, and I'd have to say 2020 was the worst year to try and start a network. But you know, we kept going, and actually we saw significant growth in our community. Like it doubled in that time, and you know, our online connections were tripled over the our monthly averages tripled over that time too. So there is a hunger out there for a connected network of people, you know, thinking this way. So for me, the priority is certainly still that digital transformation piece, focusing on what we can do to help people connect better online, and focusing on value for our social enterprise members, but also others in the community who want to support social enterprise to flourish, creating value to everybody. And part of that is doing some basic work about raising the profile of social enterprise and building those allies across Victoria. Also, this is a big year for Victorian social enterprise because we're looking forward to continuing our work with the Victorian government on a refreshed social enterprise strategy. We've had great partnership with them the past couple of months after a consultation process late last year, which got a broad range of views and really exciting ideas. And we hope that we will see something announced this year that puts some long-term and long horizon ideas ahead of us that, yeah, I can't wait for.
Fabulous, and that's precisely why we've had you on today. And I have to say, Nick, being in Victoria and on the eve of a new footy season. It's a contentious question always, but we'll finish with something light. Who do you barrack for?
I'm a tragic Carlton fan, and it's probably, I'm a child of the 80s, the early 80s, so it's partly the glory time, but also as a Greek Australian, I saw a lot of myself in the team of Carlton in the early 80s. They were a very diverse European multicultural team, and it's something, I think, when it comes to whether you're talking about sport or elsewhere, it's really important to see success in the people you identify with in great positions. And I'm also really proud now that we've got some great female role models in the AFLW, like Taylor Harris, who is a wonderful role model, I think, for young women. But also, I learned the other day that she's written a book to help young people deal with online bullying. Like, she's just remarkable. So I think having sport show leadership in those other areas is really fantastic. So those bits I'm proud of when it comes to Carlton. What happens on the ground, not so much.
I have to agree with you. I nominated myself to be a Carlton tragic when I came to this country 15 years ago. And I haven't seen any of the glory days, so I'm still waiting.
It's all very tragic.
Well, coming from a one-eyed Collingwood supporter in myself, I have to say that's one of the best answers to that question I could hear, Nick. So and to be able to draw it back to what you do every day as well is really special, and I couldn't agree more about community leadership and the role that sport has to play in that. Fabulous. It is interesting, I guess, where Collingwood and Carlton are at least united against Richmond at the moment. So we have that.
An additional story that Kate and I first met at Princes Park, Icon Stadium, and she wasn't happy. So it was a meeting at the cafe. I was just glad that I made it out without spontaneously combusting, but that's the respect I have for you, Brian.
I'm sure you walked past the premierships wall, Brian. You took, great.
Yeah, I'm not without hope.
That's where I take my kids as often as I can, just to bark on those past achievements.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's all good fun. So that's really all we've got time for. So thank you so much, Nick. It was wonderful to hear about SENVIC and the great work that you're doing in the social procurement space. And we look forward to having many more conversations and working together where we can in this really important space for Victoria and for both of our organisations. So thank you so much, Nick.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nick.